All right, James, this is Mike D from the Fittest League, and today we're going to go through your lifts from the Fittest League Winter Weightlifting Throwdown back on February 20th, 2016. So in here we have all three of your snatches, and then we have your clean and jerk where you did the fist pump at the end. I'm assuming that was your PR. So we're going to break them down. Just some things to think about here when we look at the snatch. Your setup's pretty good. And then we really want to look at the knees. You're having the knees staying parallel to each other, which it also is apparent in the catch. And that's going to limit really two things. It's going to limit your depth under the bar in the squat. And then it's also going to limit your ability to land in a vertical position. And you'll see that when you miss your first one, your feet really don't move at all. And we want to think about jumping the feet out just slightly, like maybe a foot width. So, you look at your foot, maybe that's 3 inches. So you start in your pulling stance, you end in your squatting, overhead squatting stance. And we want to have a little bit of external rotation at the hip. So that's going to be thinking about opening up the groin a little bit to let your torso sit in between the thighs instead of having the knees straight forward where you're kind of cut down a little bit like a deadlift. So we're going to take a look here, but I'm going to roll through all three of these, and then we're going to roll back your last complete hit. So here we go. All right, so we're going to rewind real quick. We're going to take a look at that setup and then your catch. So the setup, if we can think about opening up the knees towards the elbows. So when I load myself, I think about knees towards my elbows. That's going to allow myself to really keep my hips closer to the bar because the knees go out. You can then drive your pelvis into the bar closer into the barbell on your takeoff, which is going to allow your back angle to stay a little taller. So that's one cue that you can do. Watch your hips. They kind of do shoot up a little bit, and that's just going to be a function of your hamstrings are just really active because your knees aren't in a little more bent position and opened up. So that's your first part there. Then we're going to get to here. The knees could hopefully be a little wider just because you started a little wider. Do a great job. You're staying in the heels. Right here you start to kind of come up, and you can really see it apparent there when your heels start to really raise up. At this point, you should be really driving the knees backwards, past the knee, and then scooping underneath the bar, staying in those heels, using those hamstrings and glutes, and your vertical back right before you take off. And then when it's time to catch, your feet kind of stay in the same place. There is no kind of opening. You have a little bit of opening in the thighs, but then you kind of collapse in, and you got a really tight stance. And it looks like your torso just doesn't have enough room to get through. So it's a nice power snatch. You can see you're really cramped up there. So really working on two things. Working on some snatch balances to really ingrain that better landing pattern. Working on the hip mobility. So sitting in the deep squats. Doing your deep goblet squats with a kettlebell, just stretching and trying to open up the pelvis a little bit. And then obviously your third thing would be to get better at your overhead squat positioning in the low. And maybe that means taking a pause and trying to breathe yourself deeper into that squat like we do in class. All in all, great lifts. So we have one of your clean and jerks, and we're going to go into that now, and then I'll break it down. So if we rewind this guy, a little bit with the knees once again, but it's not as apparent in the overhead as it is in the this front squat catch. And then that jerk, nice jerk, we want to just make sure we use more of your legs. So I'm going to rewind this back here. So when you load, try and really press the thighs open. You're staying over the bar, your back and hips are coming up together. From this point, you drive back on those heels. Don't come out and meet the bar. Bring the bar to you. Longer arms. That way you can use your traps. You'll finish. Triple extension, good, up on the toes, feet slightly open. Watch your feet, they slightly open. It's a very slight. You're in that narrow stance. Get those knees open, great catch. A little far forward, but that just might be because you're tight in your stance. We stand up, and then what happens here is, if we look at your jerk, you do a great job resetting. Your jerk dip should be about 10% of your height. So when you go, the knees got to go out, your butt's got to go straight down. And what happens, your knees go forward, your hips kind of slide forward, you come up on off your heels a little bit. Well, that means that barbell traveled forward. That means you're going to have to jump underneath. And then we have you drive it off the body. Great vertical drive. And it gets to about the face, and then you start to split. We want to drive that bar higher off the body using the legs, so a big old like quarter front squat and drive it off. And then absorbing with the hips. So right there, your legs are pretty much locked. So that just tells us that we didn't have enough into the barbell from the start to get it higher or high enough, because your back knee is bent. It looks good. But nonetheless, did a great catch. Don't stand up too quick. And you save it. Nice step for the call to down call. And the best part, I think we missed it. We got a little bit there, your fist pump. All right, James. Great job. Thanks for supporting us. Make sure to follow us on the Fittest League on Instagram.